shove something in there, pop that right out, and then you can start with the screwdriver.
Who's ready for the next snowstorm? All right. Spring will have to get here sometime. Dr. Sears, when's it coming? You seem to know lots of things.
When it gets warm.
When it gets warmer, okay. Oracle. Dale Meltzer has our invocation, pledge, and Rotary moment this morning.
These are just thoughts. I've done these over the years, and I keep adding to them. I must have 6 pages of them, so this gives you something to think about. I believe that the best teacher in the world is my last mistake. I believe that just one person saying to me, "You've made my day," makes my day. I believe that being kind is more important than being right. I believe that no one becomes a fool until they stop asking questions. I believe that the time is always right to do what is right. I believe that we should be glad that God doesn't give us everything we ask for. I believe that to ignore the facts does not change the facts. I believe that opportunities are never lost because someone will take the ones you miss. I believe that when you harbor bitterness, happiness will dock elsewhere. And I believe that the less time I have to work with, the more things I get completed and accomplished. Would you like to stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
of the things we think, say, and do.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
No, mostly just the back of your shirt. Like a
My Rotary
flag on the back of
moment
your
is
shirt.
when I met Mike Conrad when I was working for the JDR out when I was at Kane Weber. That was one of their corporate initiatives, and I met all these wonderful people. And Mike was one of the most important ones I met. And we were just sitting, having a glass of wine right here at the O'Henry in the bar with a bunch of other Kane Weber people. And I talked to him about Rotary. And that's how I got into
Thank you, Dale. Great words. That one about the time, I'm going to have to work on that. Glenn has our Sergeant at Arms report.
Well, good morning, everybody. Now, it's been about 7 years since I was last Sergeant at Arms at another club, and we did things a little bit differently back then compared to here. And what we did, we used to kind of go fine crazy, and we used to always make up different things about how we can raise more money for Rotary. But I understand that we don't do that much down here, so I'm just going to kind of go with the program here. But if I am Sergeant at Arms again, beware, I may start fighting. So we have 2 visiting Rotarians. We have Steve Rayburn from the Summit Club. Welcome. And from the Rowing Club, we have Richard Brown. Welcome. And then Jonathan Smith brought a guest. We have Stephanie Ashton. Welcome. And that's all I got.
If you'll add, there's one guest, my guest, Bruce McCall, just slipped
sorry,
in the
Bruce.
door. Bruce was with us last week.
Sorry about that.
Welcome back, Bruce. If anyone is interested in learning how to fly an airplane, he runs the flight school out here at the airport. You can leave this meeting and he'll have you in the air in no time.
All in the same plane.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Same number of takeoffs and landings.
Now that Sarah just took a bite of her food.
Rotary Youth Leadership
The deadline is approaching. I sent out an email, it's been several weeks ago, and several people have approached me interested with kids and things like that. So if your children do have anticipation of applying, the deadline is March 15th. So I need a hard copy of those because even though you submit them online, we, as a club, will make recommendations to the Greensboro Club of the students that we would like to sponsor. So as a board, we do have to approve them. So let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Rapid Brown.
Lewis drags are on tonight, guys. We need to get a good head count for beverages and eats or whatever. So if we could, please, can I get a show of hands of people who might be interested in coming? Good. All right, so we're not going to cancel. We've got a quorum here. So if you could get a chance today, email Buster just to let him know, and we're going to get together. And let's make 2 o'clock our deadline, so we'll have plenty of time to get ready. Thanks, guys.
Should we bring our helmets, or do we need pads or anything?
That's all about it.
That's all about it, okay.
2 o'clock deadline, so you know how much beer to buy?
I didn't say that.
Beer and pork water.
We have beer at work.
We got all that alcohol.
You never know what to believe with him.
Okay, finger sandwiches. Kim.
Good morning. Just real quick, if you could help me. I emailed Bobby about this. I've had a couple of members of the club approach me separately and independently saying, any chance you could help me figure out how to use LinkedIn better? And I'm wondering if we were to offer a free seminar to club members only, maybe you could bring people from the company if you needed to, maybe an hour and a half session on kind of LinkedIn basics, how to use it. Is that something, how many of you would be interested in that? Okay, all right, so we need to find a time and a place for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Could you also include a session on using the TV remote? Erica, do you have anything on Shadows Day? It's coming quick.
It is coming quick. I just want to thank the 10 volunteers that we have that have committed to participating and serving. I have been in constant communication with the counselor over at Page. Because of the weather, she's been having a hard time nailing everything down, but she hopes to have that done for me by tomorrow. So hopefully we can get you matched pretty soon. Looking forward to it. And thank you again for volunteering.
Thank you, Erica. Any other announcements? I want to personally thank everyone that responded to my call for lawn care. It was overwhelming. Everybody gave me some great recommendations. I'm going to put my wife onto that project. Sift through, but yeah, it's the beauty of Rotary, though. I mean, it's wonderful to have a resource to firsthand, and I just want to thank everyone for that. Kevin, birthdays, anniversaries.
We do not have any anniversaries, birthdays this week. So,
Really? Nobody got older?
or wiser.
Buster, how about
Happy
the round
dollars.
of happy dollars?
That's what I'm talking about.
Whoops.
Demand.
That's the ceiling, just in case anyone's looking. All right, there we go.
Gentlemen, it's been a while since I've been here. So one of these dollars is that I had my knee replaced and it's all working fine. All right. The second dollar is that on Valentine's Day, my oldest son got engaged and he'll be married next year at the Citadel Chapel in Charleston to a lovely young lady. Is that our company's building finally sold.
John, if it had been your daughter getting married, we would have given you the dollar back. And since it's your son, and your outlay's not going to be. We don't charge for daughter weddings.
Go ahead, Sue. A few weeks ago, I got up and I had a happy dollar for Wilder. He had 3 A's, 2 B's, and a C. And one of those B's he was very upset about. It was in his pre-calculus class. Well, we got a note from the teacher yesterday. He had gone back to the teacher, looked at all his grades, recalculated it, and he now has 4 A's, a B, and a C. I'm upset about the C, but he was very happy about that B to an A.
I'm just saying.
You know, he may have been like Zen. He might have just kept going back and checking those grades and checking those grades.
On Teddy just My son Teddy just had his 20th birthday, and so for a birthday present, we surprised him with something he wanted to do when he was 16, 17, and never was allowed to because of his age, and that was do a NASCAR racing experience. So Saturday, we went down to Rusty Wallace Racing Experience at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and we went through the training class, and then they said, well, gee, I think we should have, if you can, do the ride-along first, because that'll help you get to the car for the first time. So he did the ride-along at 170 miles an hour up against that rail in the right seat. He was, oh my God. And then we got back in line, the other guy, he got in the car, and he averaged 120.
Oh, wow.
So he went around that in 45 seconds, which means it's probably 140 in the straightaways and 90 or 100 in the corners. And they, on these cars, it's the first-time drivers, there's the red lines. They got a governor on it at 5,800 RPMs. And he said, I had the whole thing floored after the second lap. And he did. It was right at this, coming to the point of cutting back on him. And they have a monitor, a spotter, and he's twice in on the curves. You're getting up too high, you're getting up too high. So he didn't think he was the best at with that. So he had a great time. And the other thing, of course, he's got spring break coming up, but he's struggling with video he's trying to put together for us because, you know, not knowing to do this other than taking film, he says, man, I've studied documentary films and I need to go back down to Guatemala to take the right pictures, but he's still working hard to get that together for me and Max Kern to show something. And actually, I was on our website also looking at the pictures, which I hadn't done in quite a while. And the second or third down, of course, is Max Kern down at Guatemala. There's a picture of Max and Teddy in a house that they just outfitted with the wood. So that's a great shot for all of our folks to see too.
So, you know, as a parent, your kids grow up, they move out of the house, and you don't think so much about where they are, you don't keep up with them as much, but sometimes it pays to pay attention. So, how many of you watched the Oscars or did some of that? No, not many of you did? Yeah. Okay, so we're watching the Oscars, and I'm shooting some text messages back and forth with my kids, as we do quite frequently when there's a TV event. And my daughter is just incredibly silent. You know, she lives out in LA and works out there, and she's get nothing from her. She's included on the text chain, get nothing from her. Well, about 15 or 20 minutes into the Oscars, she sends out a text and there's a picture of her on the red carpet. She was actually working the red carpet that day, so you never know what your kids are.
You know, you're all talking about your kids, so Sadie did something incredible this week. She's walking, so. But literally, we tried, and she stood up, taken maybe one step, and then yesterday she literally walked the whole length of our living room. Like, something clicked.
It's 16 years old.
Real quick on Rosa and Victoria, last Saturday, Victoria had 2 games. The first one they won 8-5, and she had a hat trick, which is what happens after the ball. She's only had 2 of those, so she was very excited. And Rosa has made it through the 4th cuts of the Olympic Development Program for 11 to 12-year-olds, so she's pumped about that.
Since it's Kids Day, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my son was accepted to the State Senate Page program. He's 15 years old, so he's excited about that. How he gets from the bed to the car to school, I can't figure it out. Good luck. He's going to do something for the government this summer.
Well, I'm sorry I missed you all last week, but I had the stomach flu, so I kind of figured I'd sacrifice myself for all of you. And no, but it's great to be here. It's great to be part of this club. There's a lot of wonderful people that I'm learning to get to know. So thank you.
Hold on. Just got to get myself on here. So $2 today. The first one is my son's robotics team. Actually, just last week, went down to Myrtle Beach, and they do the regional tournament down there, Palmetto tournament. Came in 3rd place in the qualifiers, which is their highest they've ever placed, which was fabulous, awesome to watch. Their robot got damaged actually in the serve. Yeah, I mean, you know, the pastime. It was terrible. No, in one of the rounds in the quarterfinals, they got damaged, and so they weren't able to quite beat out their last team to get to the finals. But they're heading up to Indianapolis in a couple weeks. That was pretty cool. They did a really great job. Also, in light of my son, I promised everybody that I would give $1 for putting out the email. I do have the cards for those that wanted those. $10 for the pizza card, and that's supporting their trip down to South Carolina. Thanks. That's why I have you guys here to keep me in line. They would just see me afterwards, and I've got those. I've got a few extras if anybody else wants ones, but we appreciate it. And I think I stayed lined up in the camera.
Chris.
Thank you.
Your shirt looks good.
Now, I was leaving Jim Kennedy at opening to do this particular comment, but I'm going to take it if he doesn't. My wife came up to me this morning and while we were getting ready and said that there was a Facebook post that was really cool. And it was from a woman named Olga Kate.
Olga Hofschuh.
Hofschuh, okay. Yeah, it's difficult to pronounce. I just want to read it to you guys real quick. It says, "This year marks the 20th anniversary of me coming to Greensboro, North Carolina as a Rotary High School exchange student." She went to high school with my wife. And it's making me realize and appreciate once again all the people who have helped me during my first 2 years here. And she went on to tag everybody that helped her, and Jim Kennedy was one of the people that she tagged. She goes on to say, "I thank my parents for encouraging and pushing me to go on this journey. I wouldn't have been able to do it without their love and support. I thank my host families for taking care of me, treating me like one of their own, loving me, guiding me, and pushing me to try new things. I'm forever grateful to you. I thank other Rotarians for letting me experience the American life with their families. I thank the friends I made at Grimsley at the dance studio who helped me navigate through my American high school, gave me rides, introduced me to American teenage life, and helped me break so many stereotypes about Americans. I might not have talked much during my first 2 years here, but I definitely learned a whole lot. By the way, for those of you who haven't seen me since high school, you'll be surprised I have a kind of southern accent now. And finally, I thank my husband and his family for accepting me into their lives." And that's a young lady from Russia who's now here permanently in the United States.
Wow. Well, Grandpappy had this friend, and this friend was not too bright. You might say that this friend was a blonde guy. He was a blonde guy. And one day he was driving, and he got pulled over by another blonde guy, police officer. And he pulled him over, and the police officer said, "Can I see your driver's license?" And Grandpappy's friend was looking through all his stuff and trying to find everything. He said, "What does it look like?" And he said, "Well, it's small and rectangular, has your picture on it." So finally, he pulls out this little compact mirror, and he looks at it, and he said, "Is this it?" And the police officer took it and said, "Oh, you're free to go. I didn't realize you were a police officer." Way funnier.
That's
laugh at work later.
way funnier after 2 or 3 beers.
All right. Chip talking about his son and his grades. I remember one time when Dean Smith had some trouble there on the team with some of the grades. Chip, I'm talking about Wilder and his grades. Didn't Dean Smith have a team one time and the guy had 4 Fs and a low D?
Something like that.
And Coach got on to him for spending too much time on one subject.
Yeah. Here we go, Dario.
Jonathan Smith will introduce our speaker. Thanks, Bobby.
Good morning, Dean City.
Wouldn't have been too hard.
Came to Greensboro from her home state of Ohio by way of UNC Chapel Hill, where she received her Master's of Public Administration and Nonprofit Management in 2006. Stephanie worked in economic development in the areas of business retention and entrepreneurship before taking on her current role as the director of the Edible Schoolyard at the Greensboro Children's Museum, one of our investees. A home cook, a novice gardener, and a backyard flock owner herself, Stephanie enjoys working in the sustainable food movement in Greensboro. Please give her your warmest Gate City welcome.
Well, thank you all for having me this morning, and thank you for the gift that you gave to the Edible Schoolyard last fall. I'm going to circle back to how we use that funding towards the end of my presentation. But before I begin, I just want to know how many of you have visited the Edible Schoolyard or are familiar with us? So a good number. For those of you, excuse me, I'm fighting another sinus infection, but for those of you that are less familiar, we're a half-acre organic garden and teaching kitchen at the Greensboro Children's Museum. We're physically located on that property, so if you're familiar with where the Central Library is on North Church Street, we're just across the street from that, in the Historical Museum. We're on the corner of Church and Lindsay, so if you're driving past pretty quickly, you might miss us. There's a black gate, and there's a beautiful area behind there that's mentioned. It's a half-acre. We grow vegetables, some perennials. We have chickens and rabbits. And this is a view of one of our quadrants of the garden. And this is another view kind of towards the back section. I think our greenhouse is actually being erected in that photo. But our mission is to help people understand where their food comes from and to help them make more healthy and sustainable food choices with that information. And to do this, we use a philosophy that was developed by Alice Waters. She's the founder of the original Edible Schoolyard in Berkeley, California. And it's called a seed-to-table cycle. So you may have heard the phrase farm to fork. This is a really similar process. So everything starts with soil and making sure the earth is healthy enough to grow the food that we need. You see soil preparation in the upper left-hand corner there. And then it goes through what the plant lifestyle or life cycle is, and we spend a lot of time talking about sustainable agriculture and using organic methods to grow food. And then it goes into the harvest, and then using that food that we harvest to prepare and share as a meal. We spend a lot of time talking about community and sharing that food, eating together either as a family or a community group, and then using the waste that's produced from that cooking to go back into our soil as compost. I'm going to make this a little participatory because I'm a nervous speaker, but wanted to know, does anybody have a sense for why we teach kids and families about where their food comes from? Why is this important?
I'll give it a shot. I think people are disconnected from the farm and just the sources of what they do.
Right. Yeah, food system detachment is a term that we use a lot. Does anybody else want to chime in for why is this detachment a problem? Why is getting further and further from our food sources an issue?
Because of the glorious Monsanto?
Yeah, there's lots of players and people in the system that have some control over it. So the further that we are from our food system, the more power we give up around what our food choices are. And it's having really negative health impacts. So America is probably the unhealthiest it has ever been. Obesity, other chronic health epidemics have got to really severe levels. One of the other issues that I'll touch on really briefly is that kids aren't making the same food memories that I made as a child, probably you all made as a child. So food is a part of our culture. It's a big part of our culture. And children aren't making these same memories. So if you think back to what your favorite food memory was as a child, and you think about who was there, was it a special holiday or occasion, what did you smell, what did you feel when you were there? And a lot of us have religious or heritage celebrations where we learned about food traditions, and children aren't making those same memories today. And again, I pointed out the negative health outcomes. So one of the outcomes of steering away from whole foods and foods that are farmed naturally are these convenience foods. And they're becoming too large a part of the American diet. And there's a variety of reasons people turn to convenience foods. We all lead very busy lifestyles. They're easy foods, they're quick foods. But access also becomes an issue. So this is a map of Guilford County. You can see kind of the black outline of the county. The pink area have been deemed food deserts in this county. So food deserts are areas where people have to travel over a mile to reach a full-service supermarket, which doesn't sound like a long distance for the folks sitting in this room, probably. A lot of us have personal vehicles. We can easily get to Harris Teeter or even Whole Foods and purchase whatever we need. But folks living in lower income areas may be relying on public transportation. They may have even tighter schedules than we do, and so it's difficult for them to get to grocery stores and afford the food that's available there. And so they're going back to convenience foods because that's what's in those neighborhoods. So that's why we do what we do, that food system detachment and kids not really even understanding how food is grown and how it gets to the plate that serves them on. What we do. There's different ways that we interact with the public, and I'll just run through those kind of quickly. Last year alone, we served over 13,000 students through our field trip program. About 30% of those were fully funded on scholarships. I guarantee if we looked at this year's school year, it would be even higher. School budgets are getting so tight that kids don't really get a good opportunity to have those off-site learning opportunities. So we're constantly looking for funding opportunities to help bring more students to the Edible Schoolyard. These are just some photos. When kids visit the Edible Schoolyard, they get to go in stations around the garden and then have a station in the kitchen. So it looks like this group is doing a planting activity. This is a photo of a group of second graders with our chef teacher, Jennifer Bedrosian. And so this field trip is all around the plant life cycle and learning the parts of the plant. So they'd be reviewing that in the kitchen and then actually making something to taste around plant parts. Tactile learning is really important to what we do in sensory learning, so getting to touch, taste, feel things that are growing in the ground. We also offer cooking classes for kids of all ages, so we start with children as young as 2, toddlers, and go all the way up through adults. We do private parties. This is a teen class that we did on pasta making a few months ago. I mentioned our adult classes. We have an adult class about once a month. And we're having one tonight actually called Curated Cookbooks, and they're teaching from a book called Fresh Every Day. This is a class that Dabney and Walker Sanders did. You all might know them. It's a grilled pizza class that we did out in the garden last summer. And they're teaching a cocktails class in late April, so it should really be fun. We also do birthday parties. We have themed birthday parties in the garden and in the kitchen, so if you all have children of that age that are interested, please ask me about those. And a main part of what we do that's coming up before we know it is summer camps. We have 12 weeks of camp in the summer, and it ranges from pre-K all the way up through middle school. All of the camps have some component in the garden and the kitchen. Some focus more on culinary education, and some a little bit more on sustainable agriculture. And these are just some photos of our campers. These are first and second graders. We let them all take a serious photo, so we call them the parent photo. That's how you get them to smile and look nice in photo. Take one for your parents, and then you can have a silly photo. And all of our campers get to visit the Curb Market, so we're just like barely a half mile from the Curb Market in Yanceyville. So on Wednesday mornings, all of our campers go, and they get to visit with the farmers there and learn about the entrepreneurial side of the food system, which is a really important component. All the campers have chores that they have to do, farm chores in the morning, and it looks like these kids are taking compost out. The last program I want to mention to you all is our after-school program that we do. It's in partnership with Glenwood Family Ministries, and they have a tutoring program for 3rd and 4th graders. They focus a lot on reading and math, but on Wednesday nights we get them in the Edible Schoolyard kitchen and get to teach them basic culinary skills throughout the school year. So it's a really great program. Most of these kids come from Peck Elementary. This will be pictures of our helpers. And on the last day, they get to, they've been planning and preparing a meal where they design their own recipes and then make them for their family and friends. So it's really, really nice. So before I want to invite you all to the plant sale, but again, want to thank you for the gift that you gave last fall. We had, our kitchen had small residential sinks in it, what we would call hand washing sinks, and having all these cooking classes in large groups of kids for it was really ineffective and not as hygienic as we would have liked. So we ripped those out actually this week and put in stainless steel commercial sinks with finding these you all gave us. So thank you so much for that. It'll make a huge difference in what we do. But finally, wanted to invite you all to our spring open house / plant sale that we have on April 26th. And it's a really fun day. It's on a Saturday, and it's open to the public and free, and we welcome everybody to come, listen to live music that we have. We have food trucks and children's activities, and it's a good fundraiser / fundraiser for us. So I hope you all will make it. Does anybody have any questions I can answer about what we do?
Shelley, I wonder if I could ask a question. How many years has the Edible Schoolyard had the after-school program with Glenwood, the tutoring program?
So it started the first year we were open in 2010, and we had funding for it for 2 years. And this year, we weren't able to find a donor, and so we're essentially contributing that time and those resources. Whole Foods provides all the food for us to supplement what we grow in the garden, but we're providing the staff time because it's just such a great program, we couldn't give it up. But we've been doing it for 3 years now.
Have any of these kids ever been to the schoolyard or the GC Museum prior to this?
So a lot of these kids come from foster care situations or where they've been displaced, and they wouldn't normally have the resources to visit the Children's Museum because they couldn't afford the admission. So unless they came on a scholarship field trip, or we found scholarships for some of them to come back in summer camp, they wouldn't normally have access to what we do.
Are any of the children repeat campers, or have they had siblings in the same family?
Since I've been there, I've seen a couple of the kids go through, and it's been really nice to see them grow and get more comfortable in the space. So because we do 3rd and 4th grade, we've had some of them twice. And then in the summertime, we were able to find enough scholarships for 10 of them to come to different camps throughout the summer, which is really nice. To see them be able to mix and grow with other groups of kids, because they do form their little cohort, and it's nice for that too. But it has been really great to see that, and we're always, again, looking for scholarship funding to find more opportunities, not only for that group of kids, but for other kids to give them access as well.
Not that it's within the purview of the Edible Schoolyard, but have we been able to find out what happens when these kids, say, go back to their families, and you have more than one kid in a family come to this, and now they're eating around a table where before they were going to McDonald's?
So that's a great comment, and we have a lot of anecdotal evidence from parents to say how important this has been, but there's no real research around that. There's research around what cooking lessons and culinary lessons can mean in giving kids kitchen efficacy in the future, and they're better, more equipped to eat healthier diets. But in terms of like matching the garden and the whole food system education, there's not as much. But we really often hear parents of all kids say, my children would not touch a green vegetable before they came here, and now it's fun and cool to eat. And I didn't have a picture of this, but in one of our summer camps, we had kids harvest beets, and then they made beet chips that were just baked in the oven with a little bit of olive oil. They put these beets away, I can tell you. They loved them and went home to their parents and then picked out beets in the grocery store in order to get them. So it's great. A lot of it is just exposure and having a fun experience where they can dig something out of the ground and they get to eat it.
You want to comment on Charlie Headington and the permaculture? Because anybody's been around here a few years, that used to be an auto dealership there.
Yes, so before it was a garden, it was a car dealership, and that was a parking area. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Charlie Headington in this community, but he was a big part of getting the Edible Schoolyard started and turned that parking lot into our beautiful garden that's not certified organic, but things are organically grown. And he does permaculture classes now as well, so you can find him if you're interested in learning about this type of farming.
Instead of a question, I just have a hint that my wife and I learned when we had Teddy as a baby. His pediatrician was of German descent. She came to the U.S. from Argentina, and when she told us, she says, well, if you really want Teddy to grow up so that he likes vegetables and good foods, as soon as he goes on hard, other than milk and the formulas, he goes on food, do not give him any fruits or sweets for at least 6 months. And that's what we did. And all sorts of vegetables, that's all Teddy had. And by the most part, he still loves all the different vegetables.
I'm also really impressed with all kids, even up through middle school age, their ability to adapt and change and try new things. So we have a chart that we use that's like it, loved it, tried it. So we never use language like, I didn't like it, I hated it, because that can sort of snowball and affect the whole group. But we say, like it, loved it, tried it. I find that to be really effective.
Your cooking classes or baking classes you offer, are the people, part of your staff that's offered it, or do you use like chefs locally that volunteer at time?
Both. So our kids and teen classes right now are taught by our in-house chef, Jennifer. And then our family classes, it's a caregiver and a child together. A Whole Foods chef actually teaches those. Our adult classes are entirely taught by guest chefs in the community. So either really fabulous home cooks or people that have taught or cooked in restaurants come to take those classes for us. And most donate all of their time as well. So it's a really good way to underwrite the programming that we do with kids.
How much is a scholarship?
For camp, a scholarship is about $125 to fully scholarship one child into a week-long summer camp. Field trip summer camps, we have a field trip fund or a scholarship fund, but we give a group rate of $6 per person. So with a class of about 40.
I don't have a really good handle on how much food you can produce from a plot like you have, but with your programming and resources that you have to cultivate it, do you find that you can produce enough food for all the children and their programs and their classroom
Depends on the
needs?
time of year. We have to supplement quite a bit from the farmer's market or from one of our local grocers to help with that program, particularly in the winter. But we're not a production garden. If we were intensively gardening, we would have a lot of produce out of a half-acre. But we're a demonstration garden. We want to expose a lot of our visitors to as many things as we can. So that makes a difference. But I would imagine you'd get pretty good yield off a half-acre if we intensive garden.
Speaking of yields and plants, are you doing any, heirloom plants that typically where kids can't get that type of thing in the grocery store?
Yeah.
They're exposed to type of different plants.
We do try to find, so we choose plants, and we have a garden manager that's a full-time staff member with us, but we choose plants based on variety. We choose non-GMO seeds for the most part. Things that typically are grown in North Carolina, but also things that are grown in other countries that Greensboro residents would be familiar with. So for example, we grow lemongrass in our garden, which is a common staple in Vietnamese and other Asian cooking, so that when we have folks from those communities that come see the garden, they can recognize those things as well. So it's kind of a mix for variety.
What are the hours on your summer camps? How long do they run?
Oh gosh, don't quote me. I think our summer camps are 9 to 3 or 8:30 to 3. Pretty close to a school. And I brought summer camp brochures and a plant sale flyer for everybody, so I'll pass those.
So you mentioned permaculture, but are there other alternative methods that you teach as well, like aquaculture or aquaponics or hydroponics, things like that?
Aquaponics is a really neat area, and we would love to grow into that. We're not currently doing anything, with the exception of we have a small pond in the back corner, and so we do teach kids about different habitats and plants that grow in those water areas rather than in the soil. But we don't have like an aquaponic system, which would, I think, be a really neat addition.
There's one thing back there that's got a big, I can't pronounce it, but it's got this big net under it and it grows all this stuff. And I was thinking about planting one off of my dock, floating one.
Yeah,
I got the quietus on that I can't have it. Tell
Well,
them what that is.
it's called a chinampa, and the kids built it in a bilingual camp that we had a couple of years ago. But it's based off an ancient South American farming technique where they would flood a field and then they would float their plants on reeds, basically. And so those field would water the plants all year long. We had our kids build them out of recycled materials. So if you look in the middle of our pond, you'll see netting with like plastic jugs and things around it and plants growing out in the middle, but it's it's called a chinapa. You can make it look nice, or you don't have to use those materials.
Yeah.
Tell Ann.
Chinapa.
Till it reads.
Okay.
So-
Chinapa reads.
Anything else I can answer for you guys? Well, thank you again. Please come by, drop in any time, and you can ask for anybody in the Edible Schoolyard. We'd love to show you the sinks in our garden.
Yeah. Incredible work. And Buster, just for your information, ketchup is not a vegetable.
It's a fruit. It's a fruit.
Stephanie, if you would, please draw a winning ticket here and read the last 3 digits. Don't forget the card fund buckets on your table.
254.
254. John Nosson. All right. Have a great day.